Before we begin, this episode is a Patreon exclusive. If you would like to become a patron and hear the full episode, as well as many more like it in the future, visit patreon.com/xco radio. Alright, here's the episode. Welcome back to X Colorado Radio. Today we have a very special broadcast. I will be reading a story submitted by one of our most avid listeners, Joel T. Hampton of the famous Heat Death Hamptons, so named because nearly all of them have burned to death. Anyways, the story is written on waterproof paper, likely penned from within the tank of water Joel famously keeps himself constantly submerged in to avoid the flames that will inevitably engulf him one day. Let's begin. A man lived in southern Ontario in what's now the Great Death Pits in the year 1985. He was from what's now the Bog of Eternal Pleasure and Death Bliss, or what was then called Florida. He lived alone in an apartment next to a highway and the river, and would sometimes sit at his window and watch the cars and water pass him by. He worked sometimes, he slept sometimes, he took a vacation once a year to a cabin he would rent out in the western plains where he would worry about work when he tried to sleep. Sometimes he would treat himself to a night out in the city, but most of the time he just sat in silence in his room, wallowing in his indifference until he fell asleep. The man now lay in his bed. The air of his apartment was cold and ever so slightly humid. The window at the foot of his bed was open, and rain lightly trickled down. There were pictures of his family on the table beside his head, framed by his now-adult niece's macaroni art. He hadn't spoken to anyone from that side of the family in nearly 2 months. His phone rang in the kitchen. The voice on the other side of the phone told him things he didn't want to hear. His mother was dying back home, nearly 2,000 miles from where he was now. The man hadn't visited his family since he finished college in '82, nearly 4 years ago now. It wasn't malicious, he just never had the time or the money or the resolve to fly all the way down to Florida. It's so humid down there, he would think. If they want to see me, they'd meet me somewhere in between. But still, he never saw them. His time was far too precious, after all. How could he spare the days? The rain was heavier now as the man slumped under the weight of the news. He didn't notice the drops pooling under his window, soaking the carpet, because his mother was dying now. He had to go home. If you want to hear the rest of this episode and any other bonus episodes we come out with, or if you just really love the show, head over to patreon.com/xcoradio. You can gain access to these episodes, early access to all episodes, and maybe even your own character on the show. Thanks so much for listening. Bye!